the sweet science, the pugilistic arts, boxing. A pure and brutal combat sport that centers itself around mastering uncommon hand speed and dexterity, maliciously deceptive footwork, awe-inspiring internal fortitude, and most spectacular and mortally devastating, the earth-shattering force of knockout power on open display. It's a sport that shortens lives in more ways than one, and requires a level of discipline that can break a person in ways those around them would never imagine. Many make sacrifices for what is a sport, and some of them are ultimate sacrifices. And yet it is also an amazing part of our collective human culture, a demonstration of contained glory in battle, two human beings locked in combat, focused, driven, refined.
My goodness.
My fucking God! Yeah, we aren't watching that kind of boxing today. Welcome to New Orleans Arena in New Orleans, Louisiana. I mean, that's kind of self-evident. It'd be weird if it was in, like, Guam or on the moon or some such. Look, anyway, we present to you an evening of boxing on this September 9th of the year 2000. And if anything was going to be the subject of the warping potentials of the Y2K bug, nobody expected it to be a boxing match. Because as this, let's say, archived video of an HBO TVKO boxing event clips in on the image of an overpaid man in a white suit, you called him Brett Hitman Clark and you still got paid $250,000 for it, you hack! We are already being stung by slightly chaotic vibes. Michael Buffer begins his work, telling us the bad news. And it's not just that these fights are going to be contested under the Louisiana State Boxing Commission. No, it's that before the bout at the official weigh-in, Freddie Norwood came in at 3 pounds overweight for the 126 weight limit for the WBA featherweight division. Now, normally in just any match, this would result in pay penalties for the fight, given that at especially the lighter weight end of the division spectrum, a few pounds above the limit really can make a tangible uphill battle for somebody who showed up properly trimmed. But this is especially bad for Freddie Norwood, given that he's the division champion, meaning the moment that he stepped off the scale, he's forfeited his title reign. Mind you, he still owes Derek Gainer his fight and his chance at the title, so he's in a particularly dispirited mood this evening. The best he can do here is prevent Gainer from taking the title that used to be his, and get paid for doing it. And probably at a reduced rate, mind. This fight isn't just a title defense for him, it's at best an admonition with a payday at the other end of it, and you can just read that watching him in his posture. The same cannot be said for Derek Smoke Gainer, who showed up looking focused, confident, and ready to fight. This man wants that featherweight strap, and the fact that he's going to have to punch at a 4-pound deficit doesn't seem to be bothering him, as he squares up with Norwood. Your referee for this bout? Paul Cita, a man who has a very distinct vocal quality that makes him sound quite a bit like... Actually, you know what? I'll let you come to it naturally. Never mind. And then, like the fell cracking of an inverted lightning bolt, one that steals the light from the horizon and gives all onlookers a brief, bleak insight into the cosmic madness of a galaxy purged of all stars and cast into a shadow so deep that a new sense of sight with new shapes and colors asserts itself in their mortal lives. We are overcome by a diabolic opening line of commentary.
Any good news here, Tim, it's that because both fighters are counterpunchers, the expectations are so low that it almost can't help but exceed them.
Larry Merchant, what have you done? What did you just do, Larry? Don't you know there are outer gods that hear us speak like this, Larry? Don't you know they love to punish hubris like this, Larry? The first round is what we like to call a false positive. Don't let it fool you, though. This isn't a layer of healthy tissue. This is shed skin that's intact over a rotting surface. Because here, in Gainer, we see a man who is trying to work his counter-based fighting style against Norwood, a man trying to look deep within himself to actually give a fuck. So don't let the lack of any dirty fighting trick you here, because there's actually a lack of any fighting here. Except for a sudden and lukewarm offense by Norwood that leads to a break against the rope, here.
Oh no!
Why are you running?
The only thing that's notable about it is how not dissuaded from pummeling after the call to break Norwood is by referee Paul Sita, who sounds somewhat annoyed having recently encountered the Moononoids.
Wraps up Norwood this time.
Stop punching. Let him go, step back.
To a chorus of boos, both fighters return to their corners after 3 minutes. Don't worry, folks. This fight is like lighting a charcoal barbecue with an oily rag. It starts slow before it gets real hot and toxically smoky. After a minute of continued timidity, there's an explosion of activity that starts with Norwood measuring a left hook to Gainer's stomach that he fades across the ring from. That was most likely a noisy glance that looked more dramatic than it was. But this isn't.
Heavy machine gun.
Oh no! Oh hey, look! Norwood found that fuck he was looking for. George Foreman makes the important point on commentary that because Gainer is using his height as a defensive advantage to keep his head out of reach, Norwood is going to seek to target his body instead. Keep that in mind going forward. And then after the clinch, Gainer finds his own footing.
Corkscrew. Gentlemen?
Gainer's lead right splits open Norwood's guard, and then the left follow-up clips him across the chin before it smashes into his collarbone and pectoral. He probably felt that in his head, heart, and lungs. Pound for pound, size for size, almost nobody walking this planet as a human is tougher than a punch this precise and powerful. And Norwood shows a tremendous amount of toughness and guts by popping up like he does from it, shaking it off with a smile through his mouth guard. This collective showing of spirit ups the amount of activity in the bout. These two men are actually prepped and ready to throw now. The timidity is gone. It's no longer two men posturing at each other. It's two fighters maneuvering for attacks, where even if there are periods of momentary activity, it's punctuated by clashes of fists or rushing swings. The fight is on fire now, and it can only get better from here, right? Right? Round 3 begins with Freddie Norwood picking up Derek Gainer like a bag of groceries and walking him into the corner. The ref then proceeds to make this sound.
Norwood grabs him and walks him right.
This is not a legal move in boxing, which is why it's broken up immediately, after referee Paul Sita manages his toddler run to the corner. Nearly a minute and a half later, following a clean left from Norwood, another move that's distinctly not legal occurs.
Hey, yo, what the fuck?
The first shot is on the belt line. Absolutely unpleasant, yet completely legal. But then these two uppercutting rights? No, directly on the cup. Two forcefully rising shots that could be argued were the result of blinding due to a close clinch, but absolutely registering dick damage regardless of malicious intent. Derek Gainer doesn't look particularly fazed by this, but I guarantee by the distress he's registering with the ref that he's not feeling particularly good about having his genital triangle speed-bagged with a pair of rights. Then Norwood throws another clean shot into his abs, proving that he can find a valid target while still locked in this clinch. As Paul Sita steps in, there's a moment that's equal parts hilarious and horrifying as Norwood, tenacious as a fucking Terminator, attempts to fight through the ref's grasp and continue to attack his opponent's groin. This bullying by Norwood continues in a legal capacity, like an individual asserting himself as the dominant male in the ring above even the ref. It's like he's making a point to assert as much as his will as he can against both Gainer and Sita, which is sort of admirable, especially considering that he's trailing in points here, according to HBO stalwart Harold Lederman's scorecard. Norwood needs to put in better work like he did at the end of this round in order to reverse positions on that card. For the first 1 minute and 40 seconds, it's a dull reminder of the first round, with both fighters verging on their Guilty Gear negative penalties for doing next to nothing. Timidity leads to the worst sort of fights, I swear. But then, after a wild swing from Gainer, the arc of which glances off of Norwood's guard, this happens.
touch my ass.
Referee Master Shake, running like he's being chased by an angry Danzig, trots in to stop the administering of Ass Punch 316. This is sort of like watching Sabaki Karate Challenge, only instead of a fighter leveling a blow at the head of a fallen opponent after a knockdown to score an additional point, Norwood is leveling his kill shot at the butt, where all human vitality is stored, as we all know.
My ass is killing me.
But after that odd blip, action resumes apace, and there's some real fire here. Who knows, maybe there's some real potential in the rounds yet to come. Maybe I was initially too hard on this match.
Dynamite. DDT.
Well, that's one way to counter an opponent rushing in like that. Trap him by the head and then suplex him onto it. If they were just a few feet further backwards, Gaynor would have suplexed Norwood into the turnbuckles, and we'd be watching indie wrestling instead of boxing. Remember, while wrestling rings are still primarily made of wood and steel, they're also sprung to absorb impact, and by comparison, boxing rings have no give whatsoever. That's when referee Master Shake, who may have been daydreaming about being the drizzle, begins to count. He begins to count. You don't count in boxing off of a suplex! What begins with Paul Aceta asking Norwood if he's okay and wants to continue after ruling that this suplex was no knockdown, mutates into an absolutely boggling moment where he then begins to administer a count to a man who has just done a flip onto the back of his head. This leads to an irate and in-pain Norwood scrambling to his feet while holding the base of his brainstem. Wow, that's an alarming sentence. While referee Master Shake counts him up to 11. 11! He then asks him if he's good to proceed, and somehow he hears a no from Norwood, and he goes to try and wave off the fight. Then Norwood tells him yes, he's good. The mood in the venue is that of confusion from the combatants, ringside officials, and commentators, and a strange mix of interest and annoyance from the fans. They know some bullshit is going down, and they're not sure if they're entertained by it or not. Paul Aceta goes to Norwood's corner and claims that he was administering a 20 count, not a 10 count. Meanwhile, boxing legend Roy Jones watches from a safe distance from within the entranceway, most likely certain he shouldn't be getting close to this sort of dread emanations. Commentators are confused as to what just happened. George Foreman, wanting clarification, summons Harold Lederman at ringside into the conversation, who quickly relays his own thoughts on the situation. In short, he has no idea what Paul Aceta is doing. For folks who don't know, Harold Lederman was a man who spent his life immersed in the sport, discipline, and frequently dirty politics of boxing, an elder statesman of this frequently esoteric world. If he doesn't know what just happened, we should all be very worried. The violence is tangible now, as is the contempt for referee Paul Aceta. As Harold Lederman continues to question the decision-making of Master Shake, Freddie Norwood repeatedly clinches and pummels Derek Gaynor, refusing to break despite enthusiastic intervention by Aceta. The energy is building to something tangible, and whatever's going to happen needs to happen soon, by reason of sheer buildup of energy. There are multiple strikes that look potentially devastating, most of them thrown by Norwood, and all of them are either off-mark or parried by a beleaguered-looking Gaynor, who appears now off guard against Norwood's multifaceted anger. Oh, look! A low blow. It found nothing but Gaynor's upper thigh, but still, that's a dirty shot regardless. So, Norwood breaks and boxing resumes on tenuous footing. What appears to be a continuation of round 5 kicks off the opening minute of round 6, with angry, motivated exchanges and a dogged refusals to break. Then, at minute 2, 19 seconds, it happens.
We're only halfway through the fight. This guy, Norwood.
Oh, and a low blow from Gaynor. The referee didn't see it.
Man down, call an ambulance, tell him breathe. Wait, no. Once again, administer the count because you're referee Paul Aceta, and you seem to be slightly out of your goddamn mind. Another 20 count to get this man who has again had his anatomy compromised back to his feet, only to witness the ref that is quickly losing control over this match penalized Derek Gainer for a low blow he didn't actually see. So he didn't witness the dick damage, but he does acknowledge the dick damage. I don't know Freddie Norwood, but I somehow know I've been in a similar moment of mental bewilderment and pain, and it is this memory that is making me feel pretty bad for him. Because if a boxing match were the movie Event Horizon, it would be at this point that Lawrence Fishburne would say,
"We're leaving."
I am gonna kill you! Jesus! This guy's a nut!
Norwood has no chance but to let this feeling of abandonment and anger over having been left alone in an anarchy drive his fists. He presses on and begins swarming Gainer, brawling him, making fists rain on him. Gainer slides laterally and pushes Norwood through the ropes, choosing not to ready a retaliatory ass punch as he puts him through. Norwood further retaliates with another tenacious clinch, but makes nothing of it, other than reminding Paul Ceta that, man, oh man, Master Shake, I do not like you.
So even though this fight is ugly, it's turning into a kind of interesting ugly fight.
The pace of this round can be boiled down to Freddie Norwood angry, no Norwood smash. Going on the offense in a way to make Derek Gainer actually start using his counterpunching strategy. Kinesis is building again, an engine running at maximum. And even though Norwood continues to bowl both Gainer and Cena with his prolonged clinches, this is probably the cleanest round in the entire fight. And definitely one that's not taxed for action. Here's hoping this action continues. Witness Freddie Norwood, the Green Scar, the World Breaker. Man, where was this guy in Roundwood? We could have been out of here by now. It's a man driven by rage, a man who had forsaken his title by his own hand, to be fair, but also a man seemingly abandoned by rules. A man who now only has one goal, to hurt this taller man while disrespecting this referee who sounds like a cartoon milkshake. The only appreciable shot Derek Gainer lands in this round is this, and it only appears to piss Norwood off. In fact, Gainer later relates to his corner second that his right hand feels sore and swollen. He might have done more damage to himself with that shot. You see that? That is a man who is angry. That's a man who wants blood and isn't taking any further guff from a ref who is only half interested in enforcing rules. This is a man who wants his money so he can go home and probably be angry he just doesn't have a title anymore. Will he make that happen?
I don't care. Nope.
Oh, come the fuck on, what is this? Freddie, I give you an open-ended lead in my narration for you to follow up on, and then Derek Gainer responds by folding you like he's Superman doing his laundry. Norwood was putting in work, chippy as it was, and then with two good shots and one absolutely immaculate duck swing, Gainer introduces the fundamental forces of physics to his right temple, making him drop like a partially frozen fish. I can just sit here and riff, but this is one of those moments in boxing where there is no deeper punchline. Just a shattering knockdown that was brutal enough to win the round for Gainer off its back alone. Norwood presented a target, and Gainer demonstrated textbook form on how to capitalize on that target. He might as well have just won at that point. God! What is this? What is this fight anymore? Energy, anger, exchanges find nothing but air, in between tense renewal of the tentativeness to lean in and brawl, tempered by the fact that both men now seem to deeply dislike each other, the referee, this match, this ring, and probably the crowd in the greater state of Louisiana. It tangibly crackles, almost visible, like a red electricity raging between them. And all with a man not fit to stop Rabat dividing them, trying to maintain their individual control.
Wrestling is unstoppable!
Oh, okay, well at least Paul Ceta didn't start counting here, so maybe he's learned his lesson. Still, this is a body slam. This is a body slam powered by kidney punches. This is one of the angriest moves I've ever seen pulled in a fight. Not the most effective, not the most instantly match-ending, definitely not the most mortally damaging or actually deadly, but the angriest. This is a man propelling his opponent forcibly onto a flat mat of wooden planks framed with steel while repeatedly hooking him in an incredibly sensitive and important internal organ. This is I'm Sick of This Shit, written as a human body motion. So is this, but to a lesser degree. And how fucked up is it that rabbit punching is considered a lesser degree at this point? Well, because at 30 seconds in, a much greater degree occurs right before our eyes.
More low blows, and now Gaynor fires back himself.
Fuck your leg!
Get your hand off my penis!
Ooh, now that's a lot of dick damage. We have just witnessed dick damage forever. Hey, hold on, Master Shake? Paul Cita? Why are you counting? Why are you counting? Why are you counting, you New Jersey milkshake bastard? This man just had his jimmies forcibly rustled, and Paul Cita is counting him out. Wait, never mind. He's up and responsive at 18, and Cita counts him out. New champion! New champion! New champion! Commentary descends into chaos. Larry Merchant and George Foreman immediately are at loss to what just happened. Uncharacteristic to the otherwise jovial and insightful elder of the sport he is, Harold Lederman simply takes the mic and begins to break down why this is all a bunch of horse shit.
Okay, listen,
Harold, we can
this
see
is
it.
the rule, okay? If you go down because of an accidental low blow, and it was an accidental low blow, he didn't call no intentional foul, it was an accidental low blow, you don't have to get up. If you get hit low by an accidental low blow, you don't have to get up. The referee had no right whatsoever to count. You don't count on an accidental low blow. The guy got hit low, he's hurt, so he stays down. He can stay down. The referee, just like Larry said, should have given him 5 minutes to recover from the accidental low blow.
And yet, here we are confirmed. Derek Gaynor is your new WBA featherweight champion. And here's Roy Jones congratulating him, his stablemate, because good job, you're a champion now. Somehow. No, this isn't right. This shouldn't be happening. Larry Merchant immediately goes to referee Paul Cita to find out why this baffling milkshake man made his decision straight from the mouth of the cup.
All right, thank you, Tim. Now, Paul, you describe what you saw and what ruling you made and why you made it.
He didn't beat the 10 count, and it was actually a borderline blow, possibly a low blow, but he didn't get up. He made no attempt to get up.
But it's not like we were buds or anything.
You want him to repeat that?
No, I heard
Well,
it.
thanks for joining us.
And he was fouling throughout.
So you did not see the low blow?
I saw a borderline blow. Right, and I believe it possibly was low.
All right,
but
and on a low
he
blow,
made no attempt to get up. Actually counted to 13. You can give him a 20 count, but he was making no attempt
all right,
to
this
get
is,
up.
I told you not to shoot! Come on!
Is this a game to you?
It's not, please!
Because it is to me.
and customarily when there are low blows, the fighter who has been hit low has been given up to 5 minutes to decide whether he can go ahead with the fight. Now, are you unfamiliar with that rule?
I am familiar with that rule.
So why didn't you impose that rule instead of the one you did?
Because I wasn't quite sure that it was a low blow. I only had a split second to look at it, and I wasn't quite sure that it was a low blow. He had landed a low blow on Gaynor right before this alleged low blow came. That he.
All right, can we get a monitor here, please, and try to show the referee what actually happened?
Food service? Are you kidding me? This is third world, and I'm from the first. I'm number one, baby.
Paul Cita, that is all dick, all balls, no thigh, no abs, there is no borderline there. Derek Gaynor is colonizing Freddie Norwood's morphology with his fist. Fuck your borders. After staring off into space with his tongue out, he then claims that because Freddie Norwood claimed that he wasn't okay and that he hadn't seen a low blow, that meant that Freddie Norwood wanted to quit. Hey. did this man ever referee again? Oh, yeah, of course he did fucking boxing. And of course, Derek Gaynor is not about to admit anything about those last shots.
All right, tell us what you see here.
I see him throwing low like he was doing it, and I threw a body shot. That's a body shot. That's another body shot.
Well, that's an awful low body shot.
It was a body shot. I was aiming down at to hit the body. I was not deliberately trying to hit him low. I was fighting.
And George Foreman takes the pragmatist view.
I think that Gaynor was winning the boxing match one way or another, and I'm glad the referee stepped in.
To which, ultimately, I agree with George Foreman. I might not like Paul Sita and his wacky-ass, goofy-ass decision, but I do see the logic in why he made it. This man saw an exit door to a burning building, and he shouldered it open and waddled through, like a giant paper cup filled with chocolate shake. Freddie Norwood wasn't going to win anyway. He had fought too dirty, been knocked down cleanly, brutally. He had entered the match with a distinct lack of goodwill, having not even bothered to show up at the proper weight. Might as well just find a way to stop this pain early. Though, did he really?
Kill you, chicken!
Though through it all, I'm just finding myself asking, what can we learn from this?
I don't know, sir.
I don't fucking know either.
Well, first and foremost, I think there's something to be said that if you ever enter into a scenario at a deficit of goodwill, you're going to have to be on the very best of your behavior from then on in to be anything other than the bad guy. But on top of that, when you enter into a scenario as a bad guy, there's a limit to your behavior as to what constitutes your best. Norwood did show some spirit the best he could, but when he stepped over the line, he was admonished and punished for it. And when Gaynor stepped over the line, Norwood was mostly still admonished and punished for it. Because I'm not going to say that I disagree with the judges' scorecards in terms of who should have won by points. Gaynor scoring 2 knockdowns put him out in front in a match where Norwood, despite his aggression, was not doing enough real damage to count as an equal or greater result. It's just also, Norwood got counted on a body slam, and Gaynor did not, and what the fuck is that, Paul Sita? And maybe don't ever fight in New Orleans. Bad stuff seems to happen in the ring there. And around it. Oh, yeah, and in the grand tradition of boxing, one of the most important rules for personal safety. Protect yourself at all times.